And there we are. And it jumps up. David's in there. And frogs. And, alright, we see everybody. And Dennis. And Kent Bailey. Good to see everybody's inside watching this. Hopefully you're all in air conditioning. It's 103 degrees, which is a mild day, probably for this summer. Any of you that have any plans going into the mountains, may I mention, it will be 111 degrees this Sunday. That means it'll be at least triple digits by probably 10 o'clock. Which means if you get out there early and get started, it's going to be triple digits and it's going to be really, really bad by the time you're trying to get out of somewhere. So it is not worth it. So just get a treadmill, put it up in the air conditioning, and I don't know, put on Chasing Legends or something and watch videos and walk. Hey, and there we go. Hillbilly Bob, Relic Hunter, and Steve Wiggins, who already has a question. Can't say hello, Steve, can you? Do you know how many Indian women in the Superstitions have found gold mines? That's 11 and a half. 11.55 to be exact. No, not really. Howdy. Yes, it is damn hot. So it's going to continue to be damn hot. So I think we're in for it for a while. Hopefully we'll have a brief break, but then whenever it cools down, it's just going to be really humid. So we're screwed. It's Dwayne in the desert. Howdy. Stay cool. Yeah, stay cool. Just stay in. Happy Father's Day. Yeah, what kind of crap is that? So, yeah, ain't no hike or nothing going on here. I have decided to stay in. Anyhow, so there it is. Everything's working. Imagine that. So everything working correctly. One thing I dug up of interest, I've been going through a lot of files. I have a box, like a huge box. I made a bunch of hard copies of a bunch of mining data. One of them is the government wells mines, which people know as the I'm trying to remember the people's names, not the weeks. I have to look at it now to see their names. Anyways, I was looking at them because it's just fun to look through these. And I was, there's still people that mess around in some of those and find them interesting because some of the mines are still there. And I look at, all the charts and everything, and then see even the people that were working the mine, and those mines have been out there since time began and all, and looking at all the properties and what's been taken out of those mines, and realizing there's nothing in there. But it's pretty cool stuff. See, it gives you just about everything you could want. It'll give you the values. It'll give you the work they've done, all the assessments and stuff. It's a government site. And the thing you're obviously looking for is the gold. And it's so minuscule. Ounces per ton. It's like, okay, now I don't understand why they bothered. Anyways, I was doing that, and then I found Michael Bilbrey's mine up on Tortilla and looked at that. And they found a trace of gold that was very minuscule that they crushed. And this is, the government assayers and stuff went out, and this is when they're approving and allowing them to continue the claims. So it's interesting stuff. It shows you there is gold in places, but a lot of these places didn't have anything worthwhile. And these people put their lives into it, and you see how much time and effort, which continues today, people still do for just such a fraction. Now, at $3,400 an ounce, it doesn't take a lot to make something off of it, but yeah, people definitely back then were not making any kind of living off of this stuff. So there you go. But interesting research and stuff. So we had David Villa and Dennis Morgan, and then we have Phil Zerman. Have you ever seen a skunk in the Superstitions? Yes. I've seen a skunk out in front of my house. Have you ever been to Al Morrow's mine, the Jester? Yes, I've been there. Yeah, I've been to Al's camp and out where the Jester was. And he had a couple other claims he worked on, so I had those papers, and we went down there and explored that area and the rock that had the walt, the 1843 or whatever, the waltz and stuff. Went down there. That was part of my journey for many, many years. I saw it when I was younger, and someone kind of walked me through some of the stuff, and then I went back later because I was questioning things and going back in. But yes, and it changed a bit. But Al's camp, it's not a camp anymore. But and he had a couple different camps. He moved the one down into Needle Canyon later. Saw a drone video Flatiron. Well, have you been? I've been on the Flatiron. I don't think I'll ever go back. I don't know. Trevor talks about it like he'd like to do it once, which I don't know. I don't have. It's a cool view over the city. I'm not the person that feels like, oh, I did the Flatiron and I got to have a shirt or something. Or I've never had that kind of mentality. Maybe when I was younger, of kind of ascending certain things. Oh, I went up Mount Humphreys. I kind of want to go someplace where I want to go for a purpose and reason. So I'd been up through the Flatiron and through Siphon Draw because of Center's Gold. But to me it wasn't the Flatiron, because I'd been out by the Flatiron, and it's kind of like I don't know, it's kind of touristy. So I'm not a Wave Cave Flatiron. What's the other one? Broadway Cave. If you catch me there, it's because there's something that I'm looking at specifically in the area and not that. So there you go. But skunks, yes. You don't have the skunks as bad as you have them in other areas, but yes, there's plenty of skunks in the Superstition Mountains. It's just, I'm sure there's going to be more. They will become more plentiful if anybody ever starts going to the Peralta County Park. If that happens, you will see more around. But they're a nocturnal animal. You'll see them more later as the sun sets or after sunset, and you'll see them more nocturnally. And raccoons too. You'll see raccoons out there. So I've seen a few raccoons. And again, they're generally, for the most part, you're going to see them nocturnally. So there you go. Okay, so I kind of caught all that stuff up. Wow, I did good. So 103 degrees to Dow, 111 on Sunday. So it's there you go. You ever seen a Gila monsters? Yes. Randy and I ran into one on the trail once. That guy wouldn't give up the trail for his life. He was a big boy, probably close to almost 2 feet long, tip of his nose to his tail, which is a pretty good size Gila monster, pretty good size. And he was coming right down the center of the trail, and we were coming down, and there wasn't any place really to get off to the sides. And then when we were standing on one side, he was standing on the other, and he was kind of there. And then we took pictures of him, and he didn't seem to give a crap about us. We didn't do anything to him, and he just went moseying off to the side finally, and we went around. There used to be one that lived under the Quarter Circle U board house, under the patio, and we used to see him once in a while. Hey Dallas, what's up? But we used to see him occasionally when we filmed Legend of the Superstition Mountains. We were out at the Quarter Circle U a lot, so we would be out there and we'd film, and that was a spot we could just hang out. We did a lot of filming, like interviews and OTFs and stuff, a lot of stuff that no one's ever seen. And that was kind of like our south of the mountain headquarters a lot. So we'd spend entire days out there. And a lot of free time running around. That was when, I'm trying to remember his name. Howard was long gone. Can't remember Chris was his wife. It was, I can't remember his name. I feel bad. Guy from Australia. Anyways, so we spent a lot of time out there with them. I spent a day out there with Arky Johnson, and it was really nice. But they come up with one of these plastic tubs that we kept the candy and cookies in, that they'd have in an SUV. And they walk it up, and I'm up on the patio, the porch, and I was just chilling out, and I had the dogs on my camp. Patches was there, Patch, and Gus. Gus was hanging out with me. and I'm petting Gus, and I got tons of pictures of that stuff. Anyways, so they set this plastic tub down. I look over at it. They have a Gila monster. I'm like, you gotta go turn it loose. That's illegal. You can't be messing with them, picking them up. So they'd actually picked up a Gila monster, put it in there, and they were thinking about taking it out with us, and then use it for filming. So, like, there was a tarantula that hung out with us for probably about 2 weeks. They had him in a little box, and they would bring him out and put him on a boulder we'd walk by or someplace and film us walking by him and stuff on the boulder. So that wasn't stuff that was naturally there. They captured him and took him with us. And then the last I saw of him, I didn't do nothing bad happen. I know he was still alive because I saw him in his little box. But when I was on Apache Trail, they wanted a shot of me going down the highway, and my truck comes around the curve, and then you see my tires come, and then the tarantula's running under the truck as it goes up the hill. So I had to go 3 or 4 times up and down as they sent the tarantula out, and I had to do nice steady with him underneath the center of me walking for their shot they wanted, which lasts all of about a second, but they really wanted those shots. Did Trevor bring back any swag from Europe? Yeah, he brought stuff back. I got this ashtray from Krakow. And then I got a guitar spoon. It's a spoon, but it's a guitar. He brought back some stuff. I can't remember everything. I know he brought back a dagger of some sort. I'm pretty sure. Trying to remember what else. It wasn't the same. It's different places you go. Like when he went to Spain and Toledo, it's where they manufacture swords. So he bought swords and knives. Because it's known one of those places in the world where they make the finest swords and knives. So if there's something culturally like that, he'll buy a bunch. When he went to Rome and he went to the Vatican, he bought holy water and stuff like that. In Greece, there's just certain things. So he always gets cool stuff. But he has a piece of the Berlin Wall. So I know that. I'm trying to think of what else, because that was like one of those things. So he brought home a piece of the Berlin Wall, had some gifts and stuff, and he was showing. So I remember the Berlin Wall. I don't know. None of it's out. It's scattered around the house. He just, But this was a little bit of a different trip, I think, as far as mementos go. I was watching the X Marks the Spot video. Have you been back? I'd have to look at where we were. X Marks the Spot. Is that when we're down in Hewitt? I'd have to ask. Because that sounds like X Marks the Spot is like we're playing with Frank's map, and that was Hewitt down in there. And when we were by that silver vein that Frank was really hung up with and all that. It was funny because someone once posted, it was on a forum or somewhere, someone started commenting how that's just where we filmed. We were always beside the road there, and they saw us, and I was like, no, we were there for like maybe a week off and on, but we weren't there like 6-7 weeks filming. And we never really had that many people. I think the only time we really had a lot of curious people. Hey, Dexter. Dexter, man. Hey, Dex. What's happening? Oh, he left. The elusive one. Man, I'm surprised. I don't know if he got on camera. The dog that no one ever sees. Well, it's not you because he had a tail, so I know it was Dexter. He had a big old furry tail, and he slunk away. But, yeah, we filmed a little of everywhere. And, the only time we had a lot of people come up on us was Peralta Road, after my knee was banged up, and we had to spend a day on Peralta Road, and they really couldn't get me to go too far, so we just decided to do off the road. And then they had a number of SUVs and stuff, and they had me on kind of a chair, a bar stool, where I could lean against it. I've talked about that. And then people would pull up, to watch us out there filming. But that was towards the end of filming in Arizona. Good to see you. Well, you ever read Weird America? No. I think it was about 4 years ago. X marks the spot. But I thought X marks the spot. Is that our video, or is that the Legend of the Superstition Mountains? I'd have to look back at it. Think about it. God, we've done hundreds of videos. So if it's the YouTube stuff, I probably don't remember. I'd have to look at it and then hear the beginning of it to know which spot it is. From Bluff Springs Mountain. Is that X that was up there? Is that the one you're talking about? Then it was the X that was up on there on Bluff Springs, and it had the hole that was kind of cleaned out underneath it. I think I'm the only person that's ever been in that site. I've been there several times. I've never been able... Hey, Dexy. Come here, Dexy. I don't think people can see you. Hey, Dex. Aw, are you scared or lonely or something? The feral dog never comes in here. Dexter, it's okay. Oh, I feel bad now, because that must mean he's... Yeah, if he walked in here, that's kind of strange. He does not like to come into places like this. He must be lonely. If you ever see that dog loose, don't approach it. he is not a friendly dog. But, hey, Jax. Hey, what's wrong with Dexter, huh? Sorry, I'm getting... Yeah, that was very distracting. The dog that you never see. Yeah, Not a Weird America, and that was the one I thought was the Sleeping Squaw treasure. I've never been able to get anybody to go up there. Randy's never been there. Trevor's never been there. I know the site. It's a very, very difficult site to find. Once you get there, you think it's obvious. Why haven't a bunch of people been in this site? And it just is a weird site. That's if it's that one that has the picture with the X, and then it has all the other carvings in the stone, and it had the whole... And it has like an altar stone with a big stone on it with a triangle. And it's a really weird spot. A lot going on there. Gilbert, hello. The X and lines. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, yeah, that's the one I thought. It's across from the Sleeping Squaw. Different mountains. And I found that going up that chimney. Randy said he was not going to go the way I was. It was a weird day. And so Randy went back down and went around and went to the north to ascend Bluff Springs. So I was on my own. About gassed myself up going up that chimney. God, it had to be about 40 feet. And I was just out of gas by the time I made it to the top. I could smell a skunk up there. When I got to the top, I was thinking, man, that skunk's somewhere. Fortunately, it wasn't there. And then I got up and I went south. And... because I was kind of like, Randy was way far away from me. He was probably 400 or 500 yards north of me. And I'd seen him a couple times, so I thought he can come over here and look for me. And then I went, and there was this dip. And I was like, well, I wonder what's there. Because I was looking for a picture down into the canyon or something. And then I found that ledge spot, which was a big open space. And I was like, this is kind of cool and stuff. I saw the triangle on the rock first. There was a triangle on the end of these boulders. I thought, that's pretty cool. And I went over and was like, yeah, that was carved in. I wonder what that's for. Took a picture of it, and then I went down in. And then I saw that big flat stone, and I said, man, that's like an altar stone or something. That's huge. A person could lay down, put their head under that boulder. It's like a triangle carved into that. That's pretty cool. And I was just kind of tripping on it and looking around and different things. And then I turned to my left, and I saw the big X. And then I was like, man, that's wild. I wonder what that is. And then I saw the other lines and everything like a calendar box next to it. And then I looked down when I was by the X and then realized the ground was like, and then it dipped and came up. And I was like, it's like someone dug here and removed something, and then there was not enough dirt to fill the hole back in. So I messed with it a little, took a bunch of pictures. And I was pretty excited about it. I thought, this is pretty cool. Randy needs to check this out. So I walked out of there. I found a flat stone that had been worked out smooth and was shaped, looked like a tombstone, knocked over, kind of laying down as I was heading north. And I checked that out, and I thought, well, I wonder if someone's buried up here, and because it looked like someone had used it just for a marker. There was nothing written on it. I thought, there's no rock, nothing like this anywhere around here. So then I finally was able to yell at Randy. He came over. He was off taking pictures. And he came over, and I remember showing him that and talking to him about it. And he thought it was pretty cool. And he said, it looks like someone worked on it. He said, it is weird how it's the only thing here in this area. And then we were talking, and I said, well, check out these pictures. And I started showing him all on my camera because it was a digital. And he started looking at them all, and he said, oh, dude, that's nothing. Don't worry about it. Let's keep going. So we took off north, so I didn't go back. He never saw it because he said it was nothing. And then the funny thing turning around was I posted the X and a box of some of the pictures on a forum. And Randy called me back right after I posted them and said, dude, where's that at? That's so cool, man. How come I didn't see that? And I'm like, because you dismissed it. Nah. And I said, yeah, you said it was nothing. It was like just blah, blah, blah. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. We were probably 30, 40 yards from it, and he never went there. So that was on him. I always felt, even though the other sleeping squaw, something was taken out of the rock, there is a carved out hole in it. This one also fit the shape and stuff and a lot of the information, and I thought something was dug out from the ground underneath that X, or something was found, because there was, like I said, there was plenty of open space still there. So, and I went back a couple times to check it out, just to look around the area, get more pictures, but no one was ever able to make it with me out there. So that's one of those spots, because when we went back to check out a couple other things, we went different routes and never went by there. I went by there with him once, and I don't know why he didn't want to go over there. I told him we should go check that out. I think we were going to check it out on the way out, and then we ended up going down the west face of Bluff Springs, or north of there, to get out and go out through Needle Canyon. We didn't go back to the Ely Anderson. I think we just decided to go that way. I can't remember all the particulars, but that was that day. I think something else occurred, and that happens. No Dutch hunter would waste time chasing an X, giving away a location, but they're supposed to be waypoints, and I've found them in the mountains, like they're waypoints, or it's a camp, or someone did something. The triangle was what got me, because it was a triangle on an end of a boulder, and it had a dot in it, and I looked at it and thought, that's kind of cool. Actually, you know what? That X and the size of it, because it was pretty good size, that was all unusual. It was something I really had never seen. Because usually it's like, it says Peralta or El Gato or something stupid like that. You don't find X's in there. Now you do, because people have carved them. But something that old, I'd never really seen anything that big and something like that. So I was like, it was definitely weathered. And I just kind of looked at it, was like, and I kept thinking it's more of a marker for a camp or something, but then someone dug something up there. I don't know what they found, and no one's ever claimed to have been the person that did it, so who knows. How did you get Al Morrow's map? I got Al Morrow's map because it was purely by accident. Hey there, Jax. I was going through Richard Peck's stuff, and Richard Peck bought a lot of stuff off a lot of people. He had a lot of money, so he would purchase things that, why not buy the map from the guy? He can make a copy of it and then sell you the original. So he had a lot of that stuff, and I'd made copies of it. And the only reason I found out what it was Joe Roboto was talking about Al Morrow's map, and he'd seen it. And he described it, and I was like, "Oh!" It was on the old Dutchman forum, and so then I posted a picture of it, and I was like, and he's like, "How did you get that?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" Because it doesn't say Al's name or nothing on it. And later I found a picture of him with it folded up, though. He had it in his hand, but I just told Joe, I said, I found it in a file cabinet at Greg's. We were able to put together that Crazy Jake must have went through and got some of that stuff, because Peck bought a bunch of stuff off of Crazy Jake, and Jake probably rifled through Al's things, and because he was the person that found he was missing, was in the camp, very suspicious, so we figure he rifled through the camp, or somehow ended up getting it off the body, which is mysterious since it was crushed under a boulder. If you've ever seen the picture of that, it should have been not in very good condition. So it's very, very unusual, interesting that he was crushed under a boulder, and this map was found, and but Joe verified it, and then another guy did too, because he said Al had that, and that guy said the same thing. I said, yeah, that's weird how that just popped up, and we were at where it's located, and we went through the file, and I took it out one day to show them. They said, no, that looks like the original, and I said, I don't know. So I ended up that way. Same thing happened with Al Reeser's, the fish map, for a long time. Al Reeser would take it in the mountains, and then he would unfold it and show it to people. So when people look at it and realize how it's so brittle and it's such bad shape, a lot of it was because it was traveling in the mountains with these guys. I mean, whether it was Burbridge or Schaefer, and then later Al Reeser, these guys were taking that thing out there in the mountains. Pretty crazy what these guys... Why not just make an exact tracing of it and leave the original at home? But anyhow, that's how these guys were. That's how they flowed, I guess, all the way and rolled. So a lot of things you acquire things or copies of things, and you don't think much of them. And you're looking at it, and there was a bunch of things I found. Books were another unusual thing. Books not only just on the Dutchman, but Arizona history. And then I'd find a bookmark, which was a receipt or a business card or something with a note on the back, and then find out it came from somebody. And I'd be like, oh, well, this is from, so-and-so, and this is so-and-so, and this is their packing receipt. Someone that went in the mountains had someone pack them in the mountains, and then they had their packing receipt with something written on the back of it, which was really cool. So you find those bits and pieces of things too. Do you know what caused the fallout of Waltz? I don't think Waltz's nephew had anything to do with it, fallout. There's nothing. Waltz's nephew, I don't think, existed. Because Julia said Waltz gave her his sister's address and said, contact my sister and let her know that I've passed away, and so that the family knows what became of me. And that doesn't sound like a guy that murdered her son or whatever, the whole deal. I think that was just a made-up bunch of stuff. You have to remember that story doesn't enter on any other piece of information except when you tie it back. If you start going back, you find it's from the Holmes story. So outside of Dick Holmes himself, that's the only time and place that story ever came from. I personally am a person of mind to say that Dick Holmes might have had an inkling of who Waltz was in some way from hearing stories around or something, but I will stand with Reinhard Petrash's words that if Jacob Waltz ever met Dick Holmes, it was in the afterlife, because that's exactly what he said. He said they did not know each other, and they never any association whatsoever. Now in the Dick Holmes story, it's like, oh, I remember you since we were a child, Dick. Come here. Here's the gold. There's a lot of things it doesn't explain, but that's because the only time people listen to the Dick Holmes story is they're listening to Dick Holmes' version of it, and there is no other version of it. There's Dick Holmes' version of it, which is different, because if you read Ida Holmes and newspaper interviews with Ida Holmes, his wife, it's very different. Brownie had a bit of a different take on it, so those are all different versions. But the original Dick Holmes versions, which circulated around just before the turn of the century, they vary a bit, but that's where most all that stuff came from. I don't think there was a nephew. What was his name? Supposedly Peter something. Yeah, I don't know. But I never found, and no one's ever found anything of it. They just, and then there's the skull story, the chain, and they found the skull, and it sat in a dentist's office, and somehow that eludes everybody, and even a single picture of it. And yes, so there you go. Some things have just is no copy for. What some things there is just no copy for. Okay. No copy for. I don't understand the thought process on that sentence. Dick Holmes was a legend in his own mind. Oh, I definitely agree. He's the only person that would have someone else go out and tell other people. He had several people talk about what a great guy he was. So he's the guy that supposedly is out there, and this woman who's caring for an elderly man who she's friends with is dying, and he tells her, "You go for the doctor, or I'll sit with him," because it's only like 6 in the morning. So, Dick, you run through town and go fetch a doctor. How many doctors were there? Yeah, okay. And then there is no story of Julia or Reinhardt or anyone else associated with Waltz mentioning Dick Holmes, outside of Reinhardt saying he never met Waltz. And additionally, hey, Dex, he came in again. We're going to have to get him on camera if he makes another journey in. But, the other problem is then he took Brownie down to show him where Waltz was buried, because he was also, you remember, at the burial. And he took him to the wrong section of the cemetery and showed him exactly where Waltz was buried. And for a long time, they thought that's where Waltz was buried. And then they found out that was nowhere near where he was buried. But it's because then the excuse was given by all the, let's call them Holmesians, is that, well, there just happened to be a fresh grave there, and that was his recollection of where it was. Fresh grave, like what? The day Waltz was buried. I mean, he said he was there. He was one of the people who helped bury him. What? So, a lot of problems with that story. If you follow the Dick Holmes stuff too closely, you will never find anything except by accident. And you can find things by accident, so there you are. One this day, think Waltz ever talked gold with the young Petrash who died of consumption? No, I don't think Waltz knew them at that point. George Petrash, no. Did he die of consumption, or what did he die of? I'm trying to remember what it was. It's on the death certificate. Anyways, no, George Petrash, I don't think he probably knew or met him. I always am very suspect of Herman saying he'd met Waltz. I think just Reinhardt knew him, and Reinhardt's association with him came from working for Julia during that time, and that was probably the last couple of years before Waltz died. Now, Reinhardt and his mother, his brother, I don't know if his sister lived there very long, but the Petrashes were in Phoenix around 1895, 1896, and then she left, and then Reinhardt stayed behind. So I don't know how long the other Petrashes were in town and whatnot. Obviously long enough that George got buried, and that they had cemetery plots because they planned to settle there. Hopefully he would do better, as he was sent. They came here from Colorado, I believe, for his health, George Petrash's health. And then once, I think the sister married, and then they went back east. And then once George Petrash died, the mother decided to move back east. So that's. And I'm trying to remember. I just was reading the other day about it. There was something about it. But yes. So that was the Petrash. The Petrash, like I said, I think Reinhardt met him through the association. And Reinhardt, it was kind of the fading days of the really Wild West. And Waltz was an authentic guy who was a 49er, basically, and had traveled and came to Arizona when it was very wild and first settling. And he probably had some great stories that he definitely was part of. And Waltz being able to speak German, and Reinhardt could speak German, it was probably just great for Waltz to be able to sit there and talk to Reinhardt and tell him stories. I ever tell you the time, and I think Reinhardt was probably really liked listening to those stories. So that was one of the problems, and that's one thing we lost. I don't know if Julia would have been that interested in that stuff, but I'm sure there was plenty of personal anecdotes and stories, but no one ever bothered to sit there and ask Reinhardt Petrash, what were some of the other stories Waltz told you when he came to Arizona, when he came to California? That would have been very interesting to understand him better. But that was blank for so long, I believe a lot of authors and a lot of people started interjecting. So next thing you know, Waltz was a Confederate soldier, he fought in the Civil War, he did this, he did that. He did all these other things, and you're like, okay, but by historical record, we find out later that really isn't really the case. And we start realizing differently, and that's the problem, because that's in people's heads, which is the nephew, a lot of the Dick Holmes elements, the Pima girl, all these other things get in people's heads from those. We don't know enough about Waltz, so the author is creating a fiction to give you a better story, which is understandable for the time. I mean, what are you supposed to say? A man named Jacob Waltz, who came from Germany, lived in Phoenix, and on a picnic one day, he told these people about gold he had in a mine, and he had some caches and the superstitions, and they were going to go to it in March or April, and then in February there was a giant flood, and he died. But for 10 months he tried to work it out so maybe they could find it, but the directions weren't well enough, and they didn't understand the mountains. So, because that's literally the story, so you need to embellish that. If you're telling someone about the Lost Dutchman, everybody would add a piece, and that was a problem before Ancestry and other people went out. Like Jim Bark went to Spain. People traveled and tried to research the story. By that point, a lot of storytelling's already been done. And come on, you got the newspapers in Arizona. They were finding the Egyptian pyramids in the Grand Canyon, pterodactyls in Tucson. I mean, you've seen the pig. Oh, I mean, my God, if the people in the late 1800s had Photoshop, the world would have been reporting much different news. They liked doing that fictional, made-up kind of stuff. They just did it because it was interesting. They were selling copy. Think about it. You had newspaper routes, but they were selling copy. And if there was something with a pterodactyl on the front, you could sell copy. And selling copy is how they made money. Okay. Ever talk about, okay, no one was interested in Waltz until he died. Yes, I agree 100%. I think there were people who were aware of him, his neighbors, the Grijalvas, and a few people in the area, the Stars, but he was an old guy to all of them. He'd been around. Think about it. By 1880, he'd already been there 10, 12 years. And he was an older man, and he didn't have any family, so he associated probably with people from Germany. And I'm sure he was very happy to meet Reinhardt and Julia, the people that could speak German. So, yes, I think that was just very, very true. I think because they got his name wrong, and people had all kinds, because they just didn't know. Any idea where the Cursum Perfecto map came from? I was getting ready to work on that because a lot of people use it for a lot of different treasure hunts, and I had some information on it. I remember, who was it who found it? Was it Sinbad? I'm trying to remember who it was that found it. They found it in a book. They found it in a book and brought it to, was it Tom Collenborn? I remember the story. I can't remember the details now, which is a shame. And I meant to go and then start looking at the lineage of it. But it did just appear from someone said it was in the back of a book. And one of my problems was I think the person that came up with it has also come up with other things, which is always a red flag when someone's discovering things all of a sudden out of anywhere. So, hence Das Lucas, which I can't remember his name. Can't remember his whole name. Anyways, the French guy that sold drugs, and Greg Davis's dad bought the tintype from, who found the Jewish Bible, the broken glasses, the tintype, and all this stuff in a mine cave out there in the Goldfield area. Anyways, he found all this stuff come out of nowhere, and it turns out that he was a bit of a con artist, and he put together a number of things to make it really. He never wrote a book. He did write a manuscript, which is written, and then when he runs out of that paper, he just writes in a circle around it. Then he turns it over and writes, and then he writes in a circle around it, and he'll write upside down. Very much the letters of a madman. But yeah, he sold everything pretty cheap, and then later was convicted. I'm pretty sure he was convicted of selling drugs. So much for Das Lucas. I don't know. I haven't heard of if he's around or anything anywhere. Maybe we can dredge him up. Anytime they were a con man, they will always come back as a con man. Dead man's gold is worth a lot more. Um, yeah, but a living man's gold is worth quite a bit too. Gold is gold. It's still got the same value whether the guy's alive or dead or whatever. But the Cursum Proficio, yeah, I'm trying to really remember who that was. And I want to say Sinbad, but I think it was someone else. And it was in a book. Very similar to the story of Ernie Province, Saviano, and Hank de Andrea. Ernie Saviano, was it Ernie Province? Saviano and Hank de Andrea, and they found the one that was in the book binding in a Bible. They were all in Chicago, and they decided to come out here with that map once they got a hold of Storm and some other people. Later, Taz, good to see that you're actually typing and you're around. But they found that map in the back of the binding of a book, and then they were able to place it. That's the one Shoes had, and was in his redone, more modern Thunder God's Gold. It's in the back of that book that Shoes edited and published. So but that map was a very similar story to this other one, and the other one I could have swore surfaced in the 70s. That's what I'm. Yeah, I hope you're doing good, Taz, though. But have a good one. Like I said. Oh, hey, Jax. No, Dexter not coming back in. I don't know where he's at. Go hang out with your brother. But yeah, man. And nobody else has an idea either. And I was just going through it. I just was digging through a file and reminding myself, yeah, I got to go and kind of look at that a little more of how that filtered through. And I was pretty sure, I mean, I could be really wrong, but someone found it. It was in a book. Was it from a library or something? They found that map in a book, and then they had it, and then Tom had it. I'm pretty sure, and the circulation of that would be the late 70s, early 80s. That's what I'm thinking. So, and that was the time period when all this stuff, everybody kept coming up with stuff. Bilberry found the stone crosses, So everybody was finding stuff. That became problematic, because when someone found something, you always want to question it, because so many people found things and played so many scams, so many cons. It's hard. Abe Reed found it, apparently. Okay, Reed is R-E-I-D, Dallas. Come on, we got to work on you. But yeah, Abe Reed found it in some book. He was friends with Tom's dad, and he knew Tom. I think that's how it kind of came around. But it was wasn't it like a library book or something? Or was that the book that Tom got that was really valuable? I thought that was a different guy. There was a book someone came by, and it turned out to be a very, very valuable old book. And Tom had it for many, many, many years. And then Tom donated it. I think Tom donated it to a library because he didn't feel right about getting any money for it. It was worth quite a bit. Tom's told that story. It's in his chronicles. So I don't know if 1 and 2, they're both the same, because I don't remember if that was Abe Reed. But yeah, so said it was a Jesuit book of demons published in 1585. Yeah, I don't know. But there was a valuable book that Tom got that he said was an original printing, and you'd have to source the story, because that was, like I said, it was a story I wanted to look up because I'd heard different versions, and one of them was the map was found kind of like it was in a book of other things, and the map was standalone. I've also heard the map is part of a book, which I've found that is true. It was part of another book that are very rare and hard to find, and there's like a series of them. What is it, 3 or 4 books? So there's 3 or 4 books, and they're very difficult to find and get in the translations. But I know 3 or 4 people that base their version of the Peralta mine, the Lost Dutchman mine, on using that map. Of course, they're all in different areas where they found it, so they all have a different solution for it. And it's not supposed to be a treasure map, it's something else. But I got interested in that when I was buying up a lot of, not translations, but original books in Italian and French and Spanish, and I got some of the original Templar stuff. It wasn't like original first edition stuff, but it was. I was picking up that kind of stuff, and that was one of the books I ran into. And one of the I think I'm correct on this. It actually comes from a book. There's 3 or 4 of these books, and it's like one of those books, and it's a bunch of sermons and a bunch of stuff. And thank you, Dallas, because I think I'm getting back to it. And one of the other books was available, a reprint, and it had an English translation, or maybe it didn't. Maybe it was in Italian. And I wanted to either be able to have the collection with that book, which made sense, or not anything at all. And that was kind of like, well, I don't want to sit here and constantly be chasing down these different volumes of something I can't read and I'm not really interested in. So I think that was it. There's a whole pile of those types of books that I wanted to get. Someone will do a very limited printing in Europe of them, and sometimes there's a translation, sometimes there's not. There was one on some sort of time machine thing. I think it was Italian or French, and I wanted that, but I wanted to chase one down where someone took the time that the reprint had, at least I could translate it, or it was translatable. And obviously the book is so obscure and nobody gives a crap that there's never been in English. And you think anything that's like weird, Americans will buy it, translate it into English. Americans always buy weird into English. But I think it's that book, and I can't remember what the book, you can look up all that stuff, but yes, I think it came from that book, but Reed's story didn't jive with that story. And then Tom had that book that was really valuable, but I don't know if that was the book, because I never had a chance to talk to Tom much about that. And I know he had the book for years and years. He held on to it, and he just didn't see the sense of selling it. So I think he gave it to the library, and I don't know where it went from that. Or a historical society or someplace. It might be on display for all we know. So there you go. It would be interesting to look at it and authenticate it and all, because authenticating things now is so much easier than it was 40, 50 years ago. Nowadays, you can literally take your phone and figure out what a coin's worth or what kind of plant that is or something. And back then, you had to go find someone. So it's so different today. Such a different world. It's funny how things got better. It didn't help the cons, because now it's easier to see through stuff. But I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of those things. I've been so involved in a pile of folders and stuff, and that was something I came across, and I thought, well, I'm not going to get the books. I need to resolve that. The copies of that, are they just printouts of all that stuff? Does pineapple belong on pizza? I do like ham and pineapple pizza once in a blue moon. Once in a blue moon. If it's a single slice place, I will never order it. If I'm ordering like 5 or 6 pizzas for a reason, there will always be like the deluxe pizza. There will be pepperonis. There will be a deluxe, and there will probably be a ham and pineapple, because I do like a slice of it now and then. But it's not. I don't want ham and pineapple pizza. I'll eat a small slice of it. I think it's good, but that's it. It's kind of like, I like anchovies on pizza too. I only like anchovies on pizza if it's the thin style, and then I like anchovies on it. So there you go. But I usually only want a piece or so, and that's it. So most of the time my pizzas they're just like load everything on it, except for pineapple and anchovies. It's stuff other people will eat. So, but it does taste kind of good. I just don't think that's a pizza by itself. So if I was to order a pizza and sit down to eat it, a small or medium. I would not get that. I don't think I'd even get a slice. I always usually get sausage and pepperoni or something like that. I like mushrooms too. So there you go. I'm a bad person to ask just certain foods belong because I'm not a very picky eater. You and Tom, okay, we're good friends. We knew each other. Do you think there was an LDM thing? Oh no, I think everybody that knew him, he didn't tell them. I had a conversation with someone the other day, and he might be listening now. And one of the parts of the conversation we had, Tom didn't tell you things if he knew you. Tom liked to leave you breadcrumbs. So there was not a simple way to say, hey, Tom, do you know this story? Yeah. Do you know where that is? That was here you're on an adventure. You would get enough information maybe to know how to start looking and doing things. Tom did that quite a bit. There's a lot of things that I'm sure people never knew. There's a lot of questions a bunch of us have that he might have answered or half answered, but we never thought of asking them because I didn't always feel like grilling him. And one of the jokes always is that there was a time Tom and myself and a couple other people were sitting there talking, and we had a great conversation for a while, and Frank got really tired of the conversation, and Frank got up on a huff and left, and he kind of made that you guys, and he wandered off. And I asked him later, I said, what was the problem? All you guys wanted to do is, we're out here at the Dutch Hunter Rendezvous, and all you guys want to do is sit over there and talk about guitars. Stratocaster this, Fender this. And it was because Frank didn't know anything about guitars. And we were enjoying just talking about guitars and tone and different years and different bolt-on necks and solid neck. We were just talking, and Tom was like that, had a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge base. So I always enjoyed that too, is that he would always surprise you. Frank is that way in a way himself. So you always will learn things, and that was one of those shared things was guitars. And there was a group of us who would always talk about guitars, and I like talking about guitar because Tom would light up. That was something I think he didn't get to talk about as enough with different people. Should have talked about cops playing guitars. But so I don't know how good Tom was, if he was palatable. Frank once said he can play guitar all right, but don't ask him to sing. Yeah. So he had a guitar, I know, in the back room of the house. There was an old acoustic there. And when we were filming, we were sitting there, and I picked it up, and it was way out of tune, so I tuned it up, and I was messing around with it, playing it for a bit, sitting there, talking to him and Frank, and while they were setting things up, because they'll take forever to set stuff up, so I sat there and played that guitar and set it up and tuned it up, and then I said something to Tom. I said, I'm sorry, I just wanted to tune it up. It was out of tune. And he said, that's fine. And then we talked a little about guitar, and then I put it back because we had to film. Which is funny because then when we were doing pickups in California, we were at a house there, and the similar thing happened. They're setting up, and then I looked over, and there was this old beat-up guitar. It was just really terrible condition. I picked it up, and I tuned it up and was playing it while I was waiting for them to set up. And as soon as they were like, okay, we're almost ready to go, I just took it, set it back. Yeah, so... But he had that acoustic in the corner by the fireplace. I remember seeing that day and tuning it up. Do you think Tom and Bob Ward exchanged a lot of information? I think there was a lot passed between them. How much of Bob or how much... I think Tom had a soft spot for vets. And I think Tom genuinely liked Bob and understood Bob. Were they like Dutch hunting blood brothers? No. I think because of Bob's military experience, his service, I think Tom kind of tried to look out for him and stuff. So I think there was more to it. It's you got to remember, some of these guys had friendships, and they might have been looking for the Lost Dutchman and stuff like that. But you can be around people that's not what they all talk about. They can spend a lot of time. There's usually other things interrelated in the relationship, and they can be close friends. So I'm pretty sure that Tom and Bob were friends, and on a level where they taught, when they talked, they just didn't always talk about that stuff. And Tom had some funny stories about being over at Bob's place at times, different places, different times, and hanging out with Bob. I don't know if any of those are on interview tapes or anything, because some of them were pretty wild. Tom thought a few times he might be getting set up by Bob, but when he met him early on. But I think there was a certain respect for whatever Bob had gone through in life, and I think that was part of the basis of their friendship. Thanks again for sharing that information on Cayman. Hopefully it will help find them. The reason is to keep it, and hopefully the video, and we can always kind of recirculate it around the anniversary or this fall to kind of do a jump again. So just so people, when they're walking along, I don't know, they never seem to find anybody doing the search, but someone finds something when you least expect it. So keeping someone's eyes open. I went out with Mike Cotter and Trevor, and we were just filming a little and walking along, and I was seeing stuff left and right, articles of clothing, different things in the bushes. So we didn't film all that, but we were like, oh, what's that? What's this? What's that? And then I would walk over to Trevor, go check that out. What is that? And it was a lot of miscellaneous things. That whole area is like weird with stuff all through it. And they were surprised at how much stuff I was just seeing in my eye, because my eye's always looking for something different, unusual that you wouldn't notice. I wasn't looking for Cayman. I was just looking for anything that didn't belong. So because that's how I'm kind of focused, and some people just can't be focused that way, it was interesting. It doesn't take away from other people going out and searching for them. There are people that like to spend a lot of time in the mountains and find stuff, and then it's funny because you'll go out with them and see 50 things that they never saw, and it's just the way it is. So from your vast knowledge, if you were able to get a permit to dig anywhere in the Superstition, get to keep anything, is there one place you would pick? Yeah. And why? Because that would be a place I would like to know what's underneath the ground there. There is one place, and I won't tell you where it is. But there is a place, and long ago, and there's only 2 people that know about that place, and was very, very interesting, and it just fit so many boxes, and there was manipulation, handwork done in that area, and it's buried by stuff, but there's no possible way to do anything in that place without someone noticing. And if someone notices and says something, and then someone comes, there's no easy way in or out of there. You're almost a bit exposed trying to get there and back. That was that. So it had to be filled. No, it's basically an area where the mountain has eroded down and it's covering something. And it's a very, very difficult place to get to. You want to talk about a difficult place to get to. It is a serious, there's one way in and one way out, and they're different. And it's very, very difficult. And a lot of snakes. But that was a place that I always would say, if there was a place I wanted to kind of move the rock and look at what was going on underneath the ground, underneath there had to be at least 3 feet of rock and rubble in there. Everything about the area interested me, and I got pictures of it and stuff, but it's just not feasible or possible, because you'd have to have a group of people. There's no machinery could be brought in there, so it'd all have to be done by hand. It would be a very difficult place. So that place just is what it is, and I think it's one of those places that no one will ever be able to do anything with. But it would be probably the first place I would dig out, because yeah, if I could get 10, 20 people in there and get them to hand dig that out, I'd like to see what's underneath all that, because there's just something intriguing about it, and why. And there was other things surrounding it that were intriguing, and that is very mysterious sounding, but that's the way it should be. Because anybody else goes in there and tries to get to it are going to get probably hurt, and someone could die getting into that, and it's just a wickedly rugged, rough place. It's just a really difficult place. that I don't wish upon anyone. And the way out is the worst possible way out, but it's the only way out. So it's just, there's no, what do you say? There's just, there is no pleasant to the journey there or the journey back from it. It's, you're going to be beat up, you're going to be bruised, you're going to be cut up, and that's just the trip there. It's just rough, and there's no place really to set up a camp there. It's just a weird spot. So we'll leave it at that. Staying inside, and it shows 82, but not bad. 2 fans in the ceiling, and I can have circulating cover room compared to outside. Yeah, huh? Does it check the boxes in description? It checks a lot of boxes. Checks a lot of boxes for the basic Jim Bark original story boxes, not the later added, and you have to wonder. It just checked a lot of boxes. And I didn't even think about it that. I just thought it was possibly some sort of Spanish or Mexican mining area, and there was certain things, telltale signs. And then later, I was trying to figure out, what is it with this spot? Yeah, so it was, and we hit that spot a bunch of times trying to figure out as much as we could, and just realized there wasn't much just a couple people could do with it. It was just impossible. Nearly impossible, but it checked so many weird boxes. Maybe someday, when I'm all said and done, and I don't want Trevor back in there in that spot, that's just too. Maybe it's a spot I show the pictures and just say, here it is. And I'm going to say that only 2 people know where it's at, and that's it. So, sounds like an it's an incredibly interesting spot. If you know what you're doing and you get in there and you start looking around and thinking about it, and definitely when we were in there, what was still, because it changed a bit, but yes, it was such a weird spot because I was surprised that nobody knew about it. And then I kept looking, trying to figure out how has someone not caught this place. Why has no one else been in here? There was no trash. There was human signs of human manipulation, but not of people leaving things behind, which always happens. But around the area there was, and we tried to understand that. So, but yes, it was like, there's something to this. Is it some sort of Spanish Mexican mining spot or something? I don't know. But you can't see it. You could see someone up there doing stuff in it if someone was up in there, but if you're, so you would be very noticeable. But when you're down below, if there's nobody there, it's almost an impossible place to see back to. You need something to focal point to get you it, to understand it actually exists. That illusion, you know what I'm saying? Where you don't think something is quite what it is. And it's from the ground, from the canyon, looking up at it, it's almost an impossible place to get to. So I would say near impossible. So it's so, you need a lot of rope and some climbing gear. It's a really odd place. So I'm sure with the right funding and political pull. But see, in order to get there, you have to have something. So you have to get somewhere. And that was one of the things they did that was brilliant. When it's a difficult place like that, you can't get in there and get to it and do what you need to do to maybe convince someone, but then you got to give it up. And like Frank would say, there are people that will sit at the recorder's office watching people put in mining claims and seeing where it's at. So before it's all patented and done, they're out there checking on people's property, and people do go in and do stuff. So literally, what do you do in that aspect? You do what you can, and then you just go, what if somebody... It would just literally create a bigger problem. You're in a position where there was a story once from one of the Peraltas who came out and looked at the old Peralta mines. And he said he looked at several of the sites where the Peraltas had worked in the mountains. And he said that is just such a mess, and just the rocks and everything that's come down. It was nothing like that back in the day, because... think about it, every 10, 15, 20 years, there's stuff moving, stuff falling, there's weather, the erosion, things fall down, things crack. And when you look at 100 years, it's a lot more happening. So when you have all those different elements, and now you say, well, I'm going to blast this, well, you're just going to bring everything else back down on top of it. So you would just bury yourself and probably get nowhere in the process. That's what I would think. The humidity makes it worse. Feels like it's harder to breathe. Okay, JB's stuck on the weather. You can check it with Bob Kesselring's scanner. Thank you, Phil, for the humor today. Yes, let me take the tiny stick in, because, having someone like Frank with a big coil that can go 10 feet deep and tell us if there's something there isn't good enough. It's best to get that little tiny stick box and have someone from Europe read it. It's funny. I don't know how many people have bought those scanners, but I don't think many people have. I know Bob Kesselring bought one. I've met very few people that have them, and I don't think I'm not much of a fan of it. The more I checked into the specifics, because the knowledge, and anybody that's into metal detecting knows, the bigger the coil, the more you're getting out of it. And that thing is just, it's just the magic. Like Frank says, the magic cane. And that's what Frank always refers to it. And it's Robert. Bob to his friends, but Robert. But Robert has his scanner, and we call it the magic cane. But Frank's other coils do pretty much the same. They just don't give you a readout, but you can listen to them and then look at things and see what's kind of going there. Hey, Wayne, the place I told you about is a cave on a map that was shown on one of your shows on the YouTube, on the Tortilla Flat. On your show on the Tortilla Flat. Okay, you have to give me more than that. The place I told you about is the cave on a map that was shown. So the map that was shown, or the cave was shown when we were at Tortilla. We didn't film at Tortilla Flat at all. So we filmed up by Horse Mesa. Are you talking about the cave west of Tortilla Flat with the box? Or I don't know. Have to cover it with some dead trees to block the view from down below. Nope, the trees died. They died and they're gone. How do you block it with trees? I don't know. Yeah, let's make a garden there, because nobody will notice that. There was some trees, and they had died out. The drought killed all that kind of stuff back in some of those areas. There used to be every once in a while some small trees would root cut up, and then they would just, once they get to a certain size, they would fail or something would happen to them. But that area sorry, gotta get a drink. But that area did have some smaller trees, probably in a diameter like this, but they're gone, and the drought just killed it even worse. It's hard because it's a slope. If they can scan the pyramids, why not the super? Yeah, but then they're saying, there's these giant blocks and all this stuff, and then we're going to find none of it. They always scan stuff. It's like, people will tell me, bring LiDAR to the Superstitions. Why? If you take an aerial photograph or you stand on a mountain, you can see pretty much everything you can see. What's LiDAR exposing? Because LiDAR isn't ground-penetrating radar. It's different. So if you understand what these principles are, it's all the same. It all funnels under the same thing. It's kind of like, without making fun, because I do like to talk about shows I enjoy watching for certain benefits, but entertainment. And if you understand and you're into electronic stuff, electronic music, you're into electricity, certain things, you use certain types of you use certain technology for certain things, for scanning frequencies and stuff, you'll understand how stupid the 1.6, 1.2 stuff people make such a big deal about on a certain show is. It's like they go through the roof, and it's like, dude. But they always go over the top about things, because most of us that are not in those certain fields or specific things, I bet you there's a lot of guys that are into radio wave, microwave stuff, and ham radios and stuff, and those shows do not mean anything to them. They just watch them and shake their head like, oh, what the hell? That's a problem there. The two young men you took up to Boulder Canyon, check it out, is there. The two young men you took up to Boulder Canyon. Two men to Boulder Canyon. Two young men I took up to Boulder Canyon. Man, I'm going to need help on that because I've been to Boulder Canyon so many times. The two young men you took to Boulder Canyon. Who would that be? Okay. And you're saying one of your on your show on Tortilla Flat, Boulder Canyon. I don't. And if you're talking the TV show, not YouTube, I don't think they were ever in Boulder Canyon. I don't think we ever went anywhere near Boulder Canyon. Because I know Boulder Canyon. Mineralization will create false images. Yeah, well, everything will create false images. Trev and Tyler. So me and Trevor and Tyler in Boulder Canyon. So it would be the YouTube stuff. I don't think we were in Boulder Canyon. I don't think Tyler's ever been there. Trevor, maybe. Tyler, no. I'm trying to go through my head because, man, spent a lot. Most of the time I spent out with my sons, was out in Fish Creek, out by Fish Creek Mountain, Horse Mesa, and that area. See, Fish Creek, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's Fish Creek. If that's what you're talking about, it's Fish Creek. Between the road and the Salt River and out in that area. That could be it. Yeah, it's not Boulder Canyon. Yes, Iranians. What? Okay, I have no idea where you're going with that. So yes, that wasn't Boulder Canyon. That was that would have been. Now I've taken the boys down Fish Creek a number of times, and there's several caves there. So now I got to go read back. Now that I'm in, maybe the place I told you about is the cave on a map that was shown on one of your shows. So I don't know which cave it would be. Was it the one up above, the one down below that's filled in with sand? The Barry Storm Cave is actually not the cave people thinks is the Barry Storm Cave. That's in a different location. Then there's the Sal story of the box, which also Dave Cook, Alan Tree, everybody else had a story of, and that's by Tortilla, but that's not. They assumed it could be Barry Storm, but each person had a different version of that story. So I've always been curious, and then nobody will go up there with me because of the people that told me about it. Because I was like, Sal told me about it, that Dave Cook told me about it, and another person told me about it. And as each person told me, I was like, well, take me out there. And each one of them had a different story. I said, nah, don't go with Sal. I'll show you. Don't go with him. I'll show you. You know, and that became, but nobody would show up because I wanted one of them to show me. Because you know what they do? They go out and go, oh, he took you to a different place. Okay, so I want to know the place you're talking about. And each of them had a different route to the same place. It was very weird. So, sounds like people you took to show them how to pan for gold. If it's that's not my sons. That's Emiliano and Justin. That was Fish Creek. And that's not Barry Storm's cave, but if it's that mine cave at it that's above the road there down in the bottom of Fish Creek. So that's that. Well, that's down. The place they went in was, I told them several places to go, and they decided they wanted to work on that old prospect up above the road. And I said, that's stupid. It's not a pit. And that was I didn't film with them after that because we were down there. We did the gold panning. We did some metal detecting. I told them where there were several caves and a couple mines, a couple prospect pits, and I said, if you guys go, but they did not want to do the work to go to those spots, so they could see from the parking area by where we were entering Fish Creek, which you can, that old adit, and they were like, well, what about that? And I said, it's got iron around it, it's reddish, you're gonna have to block it out when you film it, but everybody's gonna know where you're at. And I said, that's kind of silly. And they're like, oh no, that'll be perfect for, that was what they wanted to do, and they got hung up on wanting to go up there. And I said, okay. And I do not know what they did at that point, because when they were going up there to film is when Trevor actually was on that filming with me. He was working as an assistant with them. I told him, get in the truck, let's just go. I wasn't mad. I was just like, okay, you guys want to do the silly thing. That's kind of ridiculous, and that's what they did. And then they turned around and did the expert thing and then said, oh yeah, it was the earthquake theory. And then it was like, well, now you guys are stupid, because you went to that attic, which is clearly open, and then you tried to play the earthquake theory. So, cool guys. I liked them. It was fun filming the show. I think it was a little bit of a hot mess tour at the end because they were trying to go too many different ways. And every time you'd say, well, this layer is perfectly here, why don't we go here? Well, that doesn't work for us. And it was funny because layering the map and the stuff on the topo map, I showed them where it worked, so it would work with Fish Creek, but they thought it worked in a different area better. So if you pay attention to the show, the area they show it in and the area we're supposed to go to is completely different than the area we go to, because they thought it fit better on camera and it looked better. And I was like, and I remember being like, you guys want to walk across Mesquite Flat? I said, that's stupid. See, a ridge left of Tortilla Flat, that is not that mine that they showed in that show. The ridge left of Tortilla Flat, no, the mine they went into on Fish Creek Road, just across the bridge down in Fish Creek. Completely different area. But anyways, I'm getting into too many different things, so we'll get lost in that. But that was the mine they went into, because they only filmed... We filmed in Goldfield, and then they went down to Fish Creek, and I took them down there several days. And like I said, the last thing they filmed, the last piece of film they did was going up to that adit just above the road. And anybody who knows the area knows that mine. It's up in the iron tailings up there, just once you get past the bridge and hit the flat before you get to the parking lot at Fish Creek, going to Apache Lake. And that was the mine, and they focused on that. And I said, that does not fit, because you want a pit mine. And they were like, well, it'll work. They wanted something they could walk in. So there you go. In your opinion, would it be better to find Ted DeGrazia's paintings or small cache? I would rather find DeGrazia's paintings, because I'm a fan of DeGrazia, and I think that would be cool. Oh man, we kicked it past time, so we're going to have to wrap up here in a few. On the ridge left of Tortilla Flat. See, on the ridge, if I'm facing Tortilla Flat, so if I'm standing in Tortilla Flat and I say the left, that's where that cave is with the box and the cot and the stuff that Dave Cook, Alan Tree, Salvador de Dio, all these guys I've talked about. The other way, there's a cave back that way. They found some of Storm's stuff, but it was in a different place. I've always been curious, because Shoes found one and said, yeah, Storm. Because now here's the other thing. Shoes actually met Barry Storm. He ended up with the rights to Thunder God's Gold from one of Storm's partners, and knew a lot of the particulars with them. So he went looking for something and found something they were aware of, but I don't know. Storm was, what was it? Tom Collenborn's dad once, they all called him back in the day when he was Barry Storm, when he first did his books and he thought he was famous. They all called him Clemenson. He was John Clemenson to them, and then he became Barry Storm. And they kind of talked to him about a bit of it being a shyster. He was kind of like what we would call a drugstore cowboy type guy. He was kind of that persona, and so it's very interesting. But yeah, we'd have to Yeah, tortilla flat. Because if you're taking that as part of the show, there was nothing near tortilla flat we filmed on that. We were down the road, down. In fact, I don't know if I could even get them to film out by Horse Mesa. They liked Fish Creek because it was warm, so they really liked going down into Fish Creek down there where they could park in the shade and do that. So we set up down there a few times and filmed. So they would make, and they had a very small crew for that. There was maybe 3 cameramen, 1 audio guy, a producer, and then whatever talent we brought along. And that was a very, very small working crew, but they tried to get the most out of any location they could. So we filmed only in a few locations, and then they went down like the university and did a couple other pieces. But yeah, it was a very, very fast, small crew, and they tried to limit certain particular spots. We filmed up on the overlook at the top before going down Fish Creek Hill, but I don't know if they used any of that, and I would have to watch the show again. Tom Van could use everybody's best wishes. He's in the damn. Fighting massive clots in his leg. Okay, yeah, you told me about how his leg and everything wasn't doing well. It blew up on him. Well, I'm hoping best for Tom. Hopefully he gets through this and they can. I know when it gets to that stuff, it's a medication. You got to hope the clots, they're able to dissolve the clots and get everything cleared through. And also tell Tom I wish him the best and hope everything's going well with him. And hopefully he's back out of the hospital. Tom's been around a time or two. So we're going to get through. Let me know how he's doing, since you'll be the one person that's in touch with him. So let me know how Tom's doing, and I'm sure we'll talk over the weekend so you can kind of give me an update of how he's doing. There you go. We're going to get out of here. Father's Day. I got pizza coming up. I got groceries coming up. I got dogs approaching and walking up. So until the next time, thank you for joining us. Everybody have a great weekend. Stay out of the heat, please. If you live out here in Arizona, stay in, stay cool. Let yourself really adapt this next month or so before you really go out and try to push something, because this is the wrong time. I felt it Wednesday and Thursday. I had some real long days, and today, fortunately, I had a much quieter day, and it was a little nicer in the morning, but I still feel the week. So, everybody, please, just make sure you take care of yourself. Okay, thanks. It's still covered up. Okay, we'll talk again next time, or you send me a PM or something, or what, DM or whatever that crap is that the kids do. Anyways, and let me know, and we'll kind of sort all that out. But that being said, thank you for everybody's support and everything, and the videos and everything, and always interacting. Thank you for the great time we had today. And so everyone have a great weekend. Have a great rest of the week. Happy Father's Day to everyone. Happy Father's Day to me, because I did breed as well. Thank you, and everyone have a great week. Signing off.